Moving on to task 1.4, basic ring settings. We're told to set Hugo Reyes' phone, corporate headquarter phone 2, to allow for up to 3 total calls, but only 1 call can be active before future calls ringing in get forwarded to his call forward busy setting. Also, we're told to set his DND, do not disturb, so that if it's enabled, it automatically gets forward to his call forward busy setting. However, still allow his handset light to flash, indicating the incoming but forwarded call, and ensure that he has the ability to toggle DND on and off. And let's go ahead and set his call forward busy to Eloise Hawkins, extension 2001, to test. Okay, so let's go back over. We're on corporate headquarter phone 1, so we'll need to go over to phone 2, Hugo Reyes. And first off, we were told to allow for up to 3 total calls, but only 1 to be active before future calls that are ringing in get forwarded to his call forward busy setting. So this is going to be on the DN itself. And on the DN itself, we take a scroll down, if my scrolling will start to work. Here we have multiple call or call waiting settings on the device. And Christopher, sorry, I just saw your question for the last task, which was, if you asked, you don't need to enable, I think you're kind of stating a question here, you don't need to enable span to PC port as well, question? And that's correct. For the last one with logging, we don't need to enable span to PC port. This is just for logs that are being generated by the local phone and sent. Span to PC port would be if we want to see traffic, not just logs that are generated internally by the phone, but also traffic, IP traffic that's correct. Span would actually send everything, all the IP traffic from both the internal switch port and the external phone switch port that says to 10100 switch. No problem there. And I should note that we didn't go over every feature there under the actual phone. Let's just go back here real quick. We certainly didn't go over every single one of these, mainly because there's a lot of reading associated with each of the product-specific configuration layout help, which gets a little more granular. As you saw, logging display gets more granular and tells you about, and it was a different phone that we had done this on. I believe it was Jack Shepard's phone, so that's the reason this isn't set to enabled like we did in the last task. But it even talks about sniffing. So there really are a lot of features in here. Is the PC port enabled or not? Disable it. Do we want to disable speakerphone or speakerphone and headset? There's a lot of information in here, and it varies by phone. So you really should come in, create a number of different phones, and normally the Type B phones are the main differentiator from the Type A, but there still can be more specific information, especially if you have like a video-enabled phone, not just VT Advantage, a separate camera, but a built-in camera and display screen. Okay, so it's a good idea to click on the question and search for all the specific bits. But the 7965 is what you have in the lab. 7961 should have most everything there. Notice that we even have things like LLDP Med 2, so the industry alternative to Cisco Discovery Protocol, which is, of course, proprietary. We have all of these various bits of information. So there's a lot that we can look at there. Take a look at that, and we will definitely revisit this in other future labs in terms of, certain things to turn on and not, but I just didn't want to bore you too much with going over every single little phone-specific feature there. RTCP, for instance, we're actually going to take a look at this tomorrow. That's the real-time control protocol for the RTP, the real-time protocol. This deals with things like seeing if there is, and first of all, bad cannot be enabled. Bad is bad, right? So as long as VAD is not enabled, which is sending silence or suppressing the silence from actually sending packets, then the real-time control protocol can do things such as watch for all of a sudden no audio being sent back and forth between two endpoints and tear down the call, knowing that the call must be dead after a certain interval of time in activity, and someone just forgot to properly tear down the call. Okay, so back on Hugo Reyes' DN, back on number of rings, multiple call waiting settings for this device. Also remember, since we're here, we've mentioned this on another deep dive module, but I want to reiterate, especially for anyone that's just watching this module, that there is information related to the directory number, okay, that is not necessarily related to the device as it pertains to the directory number. So we have more information when a directory number is actually associated with a device. So the directory numbers view in relation to the device. So in other words, if I were to go up to call routing and go to directory number, just search for 1002, click on 1002, which is the same DN that we were just on. Notice the alerting name is still there. That's because it's tied to the directory number. Notice what's not here. Notice the device association is here. But notice what's not here as I scroll down. A lot. After line settings, we haven't gotten to yet, we will today, I don't see anything pertaining to all this area down here that used to be here about multiple call waiting settings, caller ID, or internal display, external phone number mask, forwarded information, all things we're going to look at today. I don't see any of that. Why? Because I'm looking at the DN as a generic DN. I'm not looking at it in relationship to the associated device or multiple devices. And that's because a DN can exist without a device. It can also exist agnostic to multiple devices that it is related to. It has certain settings that are tied to the actual DN itself, and then additional settings, almost always all at the bottom of the page, that are only tied to the DN in relation to the device it's associated to. And if it's associated to multiple, in relation to which device it's associated to. So here we can click associated device and edit line appearance. Okay, so this is the line appearance or the DN in relation to this device. Now we'll see, it doesn't look like anything changed, and up here it didn't, but as we scroll down to the bottom, okay, so notice this whole section here, the multiple call waitings, and we see that they are on this device, forwarded call information for this device. And then even again, as we scroll down, we also have users associated with the line as it pertains to the device. Okay? So here what we're talking about here is multiple calls and then call waiting settings. So we were told to ensure that 3 total calls, okay, so that's the maximum number of calls, should be 3, be allowed on this line. However, only allow 1 call to be active before future calls that are ringing in get forwarded to his call forward busy setting. So 1 call, oops, not 12, and again it says less than or equal to the maximum number of calls. So 1 call is going to be the maximum active. This doesn't matter if someone called him or he called someone else. Only 1 call can be active before future calls, 4 up to 3, will ring to call forward busy. Now this could also be 3. Wouldn't meet the task requirements, but we could have this as 3, and then the maximum number of calls equal the busy trigger, so it will take 3 calls before calls will be forwarded to his call forward busy. We were told to do 1, and we were told to set his call forward busy to 2001. Leave. Yep, to Eloise Hawking in order to test. And The calling search space is something that we'll be talking about first day of dial plan, so 2 weeks from today, or 2 hours from today if you're watching this recorded later. But we'll be talking about those, but essentially let's just suffice it to say that we have already created a number of calling search spaces and partitions, and we just need to make sure that this CSS can see the partition that this DN is in. And again, we're going to get much deeper. Actually, we're going to go over the very basics of that, and also go much deeper in. I'm just going to go ahead and set this to US National because I know that contains everything we want. Lab that we were doing for testing, so that's good enough, and we'll go ahead and click Save. And Christopher asked, so you actually have a couple questions here, so let's just address those. And again, if you guys would like to speak them, that'd be great, so just raise your hand and I'll activate your mic. But you mentioned, Christopher, won't one call restrict him from transferring a call or initiating a conference? Good question. And then you say, won't he need 2 channels for that? So the maximum number of calls is actually very similar to when we're looking at CME. Again, we haven't covered that yet, but when we're looking at CME, we have what are called dual lines. Well, we have single lines for DNs, dual lines, and then we also have octo lines. This is the number of media channels per DN or per line. So Christopher's asking, wouldn't we need 2 channels for that? Well, essentially what we were saying is that he has 3 media channels. So the maximum number of calls is really the media channels. He has 3 of those. And 1 call, if we only had 1 up here, then yes, that would restrict him from transferring a call or initiating a conference. Well, it depends on the type of conference that he was initiating, because he might just be placing 1 call into a conference bridge. But without getting too granular into that, because we'll be looking at that this week, actually tomorrow, then we'll just say that if he wanted to do a consultative transfer, which actually CUCM doesn't even support blind transfers. It supports something we'll be taking a look at, but something called call transfer on hook, but it's still a consultative transfer. So that would be a second call, and you're right, he wouldn't be able to do that. So 3 channels will give him enough. Now we can give him more. This is just what the task asked us for. And it's stated that you can have up to 200 active channels on a phone, but not necessarily on a line. Here we see that the max number of calls for a line is 50, value from 1 to 50. But we can have multiple lines on a phone, and it can have up to 200. That's not necessarily recommended in any way, but that is the maximum. Okay, so we've set it to, let's just double check, 3 and 1. We've set the call forward busy. We're not sending it to voicemail because we don't have any voicemail to find. It's 2001 with a proper CSS. Save. 1002 should reset here. Already has been resetting. It's registered again yet. Okay, so now okay, so now if we go ahead and make a call, let's say we'll call from 1002 over to 2001. And I'll go ahead and pick up that call. Go on mute. So now I'm on an active call, and let's say Jack Shepard, well actually 2001 was where it was going to forward to, so that's not a good idea. Choose a different place to call. Let's call to 3001. Call's ringing in to Desmond Hume. Go ahead and answer it there. You don't see that answer, but I'm answering it there. And then we'll call from Jack Shepard. Just go ahead and bring up one more. One for Eloise Hawking. (2001). To refresh every 3 seconds. So now Jack is going to call over to 1002, over to Hugo. We can see that it's being forwarded from Jack Shepard for Hugo Reyes. So the second call that came in is allowed, but it's following the call forward busy settings. Okay, so can this guy make another call? Can he put this on hold? And can he go ahead and start a new call over to 1001? Off hook, answer the call for Jack. And then can he put him on hold and then also make a new call to Eloise, 3002. Feedback there. Let's see if he can conference in someone else. I haven't actually checked to see if we have conference bridges available, but okay, so now we've got the third call being placed, 2001. We can answer this call and maybe conference together. And we've got the available channels to end all these calls. There we go. So we've got the available channels. Conference. Properly yet to do the conference. We've got the available channels to have 3 active calls, but the second inbound call crosses the threshold of the busy trigger, which is 1, and so forwards to the call forward busy location. Now the difference between internal or external, by default, anytime I populate a call forward busy, and we'll talk more about call forward in just a moment, but anytime I populate a call forward anything, busy, no answer, no coverage, anytime I populate the internal field, it automatically populates the external field of the same type. Okay, so if I did no coverage here, 1003, it populates it with the same information, both with CSS and with DN. I don't want either of those, or external. Okay, so what's the difference? Internal is a DN that is recognized on the system, so it's a DN that already exists internally. We do have the option of alternately forwarding numbers that are not recognized by the CUCM system to another location. Typically we'll do them to the same location, but we do have that flexibility. Any questions about this task? Actually, we still have a little bit more of the task. So we were also told to set his DND so that if enabled, it automatically gets forwarded to his call forward busy setting. However, still allow his handset light to flash to indicate the incoming call, but the incoming but forwarded call. And ensure that he has the ability to toggle DND on and off. Okay, so already done a save. Let's go back to configure the device. And let's take a look at our do not disturb function. Now, checking this checkbox doesn't enable the functionality. It actually turns do not disturb on. So we can manually turn it on and then off by checking this checkbox. But that doesn't necessarily mean that the phone or the user at the phone, in this case Hugo, has the ability to do it himself. So here we also see DND option and DND incoming call alert. So here we have ringer off. That just means that the call will still ring in. It just won't, I should say it will alert in, but it won't ring. It won't be audibly ringing. All we're doing is turning the ringer off when DND is selected. Now the user can't necessarily choose all of these options. They are simply turning it on or off, if given the ability. Do that through soft keys, or we could do it through a hard key as well. But if it will be off, or if the call will be rejected. Now, if the call is rejected, what does that mean? Well, a call was rejected earlier when we had only one available call active before the second call we were not allocating a channel to a second inbound call or a busy trigger. That essentially was a call reject. And then we follow the call forward busy settings. So here, if we choose call reject, this will follow the call forward busy settings. DND for incoming call alert, this will show, do we disable any sort of alerting, or do we allow flash only or beep only? Okay? When we said ringer off here, we're saying ringer off. So in other words, a cadence of ringing. But we still have the ability to do a beep. Not the whole cadence, not the whole ringing cadence, but a beep, or we can do flash. And we were instructed to ensure that his light flashes to indicate the incoming but forwarded call. I don't know whether the remote phone display here will see it in time. In fact, we'll turn off refresh for this device, and we'll make his refresh, Hugo's, set to 2, the minimum refresh rate that we can do. And we'll go ahead, well actually we need to assign him the ability to do not disturb. So let's go ahead and save this. Probably restart his phone anyhow. Now we could add a specific button to do not disturb. We could assign a line button. And notice we have up to 34 potential places. These are for the 7915 add-on sidecars. We have 2 14-button sidecars that we can add on, plus the original 6 lines for a total of 34 buttons. And then we see down here unassigned associated items. So these are possible things that we can do, like assign a do not disturb, or a call park, or hunt group logout, or any of these various features, a number of which we'll be taking a look at today. We can assign those to a button. We can do that either through the phone button template here, and we have one assigned from a previous lab, previous deep dive module, or, and that would of course happen for everyone that uses the template, or we can actually say modify button items, in which case we'll get a note that unsaved changes may be lost, and we can actually specify very specific items, like let's say do not disturb. Oops, we must remove an item because we have too many. This, we actually may need this later, so we'll do this in a couple different. Select something over here so it doesn't get added. Up one, so I'll say save, close, and note this page will refresh. I've got do not disturb, but note my phone button template is SEP MAC address, so this is my device name, SEP MAC address, or SIP, because that's my protocol, individual template. So it actually went out and created a custom phone button template just for my phone. Now I could have other phones use this template as well, but the idea is I can do individual button templates. Now if I use anything here, nobody else that had the previous phone button template of this Module 3 Enhanced 7961 SIP would get those changes, because this is just unique to my phone, or anyone sharing this other new phone button template that has been created. So let's take a look. Probably do need to manually restart it now. Device will probably go black here. black screen. Registers. You can see it starting. Registered. Okay, here we go. Now we have Do Not Disturb. So note if I turn it on here, save, I'm not going to click restart. There we go. Do Not Disturb is active. And likewise, I can jump out of this page, so go back to Find List of Phones. Click the button here, Do Not Disturb is off. Back into Corporate Headquarter Phone 2. Down, note that Do Not Disturb off. Okay, so let's try this again. Let's turn Do Not Disturb on. See the little light and the message at the bottom, and the phone should, oops. Call to Eloise Hawking. But we should see the light flash. Now I don't know if we will see it quick enough here. Call, make sure this is refreshed for 2. Set it to 2. Right? So 1002. Okay, I was actually looking at the display here. Okay, you don't see this light up fast enough, but I can tell you that it does do one quick double flash on the display in front of me. That's just because 2 seconds isn't fast enough. It doesn't continue to flash on this phone, Hugo Reyes' phone. It just flashes one quick double flash at a time, right when the call is first ringing. But notice there's no real other information about that call, okay, other than just the flash indicating that at some point a call was coming in for us. Okay, so we've met the requirements. If DND is enabled, it automatically gets forwarded to call forward busy. However, the light still flashes, and he has the ability to toggle it DND on and off. Let's actually look at something else. Let's go back to the common phone button template. Do Not Disturb is not a part of his line, so none is now assigned here. And instead, let's go take a look at the soft key. This soft key layout may have been modified from a previous version, but we'll still see what needs to be on there. So we've gone into the Module 3 Enhanced User that we created on a previous layout. Okay, again, I could have gone a little slower. That was under Device, Device Settings, Soft Key Template. And then here I'll configure the soft key layout. Click on Go. And when I'm on hook, I should have the ability, looks like I've already added it, to, I can find it in here, toggle Do Not Disturb. Okay, so toggle Do Not Disturb. I can also do this on various other states. So if I add soft keys that were not natively selected, and we can see what ones are natively selected by going back to, let's go to Device, Device Settings, Soft Key Template, and let's look at the standard assistant, standard user or standard feature, either one. Click on Configure Soft Key Layout. Notice I can't save anything here, okay? But I could add, or I could see what is the default. So really New Call and Forward All and the Redial are the only things that are there by default for the on-hook state. A lot of other unselected soft keys that can be added. We would need to copy this as we've done in the previous lab in order to modify that button template and then, or soft key template rather, and then assign it to a phone. Also the ringing in state, we've got the ability to toggle DND. We're actually going to take a look at that. Might be the very next task. Okay, so that's another thing that his phone can actually already do, is other than this line, which if we go ahead and now that we've saved his phone, start his phone, well, actually I'll do that in a moment. We can see that if I click more, I've got the ability to toggle DND. And notice it'll change the light right up here. More. And I can, again, toggle DND, and it will toggle the state here. So we're going to go ahead and restart that phone because we will actually need it to, we'll need that line for something else that we're going to do in a little while. The perspective